Hey y'all, little old black eagle here, down at one of my favorite spots here on the southern coast of Maine. This is the marsh, and heads on out into the ocean, up yonder, and yeah, depending on the time of day, the Amtrak train goes by, and yeah, not a bad view from the train, I'm guessing. Personally, I highly recommend it. Yeah, it's really peaceful right now. It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's 7:30 in the morning, and yeah, it's going to be an absolutely stellar day. Probably go out on my boss's fishing boat today, and yeah, he's on the hunt for tuna, which brings in a pretty penny. Not gonna lie, but yeah, he spearfishes for tuna, which is pretty darn cool. And I don't know if any of y'all have seen that show, Wicked Tuna. It has featured people from my area, and they have actually approached my boss to do that. But I'll tell you what, just sort of getting a glimpse at all that entails to do a show like that, from what I could gather, it's not really worth it financially unless you're like one of those big, huge, out of Alaska salmon boats or crab boats. Yeah. Anyway, yep, the season's winding down here in southern Maine. I opted out of schlepping lobsters today. So my sister's doing it. She, I mean, it's a good day's paycheck, but for me, it's a matter of driving an hour, loading the van, driving another hour and a half to 2 hours, setting up actually at a farm stand, which is, pretty cool. People will show up. They're there actually, when we pull up, they're waiting. Yeah, a lot of long time customers, but unfortunately, or fortunately for them, but unfortunately for us, lobsters are super fucking cheap right now. And that's just supply and demand. A lot of restaurants are closed. People are just not spending money on lobster, which I don't blame them. But at $4.50 a pound, that's almost as cheap as hamburger or chicken. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, it's all par for the course, especially during a pandemic. Good God. You know, I'm oversaturated or overwhelmed, I think is a better word for it. And it's a continuous feeling of just being or feeling helpless. So, and what I like to sort of put out there to the universe is, to do what you can do where you are. Start where you are and go outward. Check in on your neighbors, especially the elders, and make sure they have everything they need, or, whatever. There's a lot that you can do that doesn't take, a tsunami of effort. All of these GoFundMes and everything like that, which I think are great, especially, if they can make a difference, which I'm sure many of them do. But like anything else, people, they're greedy and they see an opportunity where they can make money for themselves, and ugh, that's just gross. So, and if you want to live with that on your conscience, well, actually, you probably don't have a conscience if you're scamming people out of money in the name of a hurricane or whatever. And I don't want to negate or take away from people that actually, have authentic channels that actually do a lot of good and raise awareness and support families and people going through the most unimaginable things that I cannot even begin to fathom. So, yeah, nothing is absolute. Just because one person's a fuckwad doesn't mean that everybody else is. Like I said, I highly recommend or push for people to just look around you. There's so many, and it's a good thing to be charitable in whatever way that you can be. That's what we need more of. And so I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying pull in the reins, see what you can do in your community, for your people, for your families, friends, and don't think that it always has to have a monetary attachment to it. That's the other thing. And, from what I gather, people are just coming from a place of fear. You're either coming from a place of love or you're coming from a place of fear. There's really not a lot in between. But and that's not concrete either. So, but it's really hard seeing people being taken advantage of when they're just trying to be a good neighbor or a good friend or just trying to be supportive of what somebody's doing. Excuse me. So, yeah. Well, I guess I've blabbed on enough. Saw an eagle the other day, which is always cool. I don't know if there's like a time of year where you see more of them, but yeah, one of the cool things is that I can always tell when somebody spots an eagle because there's like 4 or 5 cars pulled over to the side of the road, pointing up into a tree or wherever. And actually, right here where I'm sitting the other day, I saw one huge wingspan. Like that thing was colossal. And once it landed in the trees, I couldn't find it. So, well, excuse me. Good God. I found it as it was leaving. I kind of gave up and I was like, oh, well. And sure enough, as soon as I put my camera down, it took off. So, pretty cool. Yeah, I always wondered, like, people that go bird watching. I always thought that was a little bit, probably not my cup of tea. And trust me, I get it now. I get it. And I'll tell you what, I see people with some of the most amazing equipment. It's like, wow. Of course, I'm the type of person that's like, how much did that cost? Oh my God, that's a lens. I can't even imagine. How do you keep it clean? And yada, yada, yada. People are pretty cool. And I guess what happens is that people that bird watch or whatever watch, oh, there's a, no, that's just a silly old seagull. Yeah, they have like these online clubs or whatever. And yeah, they'll let you know what's going to be where or where it's been spotted or Anyway, and this time of year too up here, I'm surprised I don't see many boats going by, but there's a short amount of time that you can fish for striper, whether or not that's regulated or it's just the time of year. But yeah, and most of the people that I know, they do the catch and release. So especially if they're not regulation length or whatever. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Excuse me. There's absolutely nothing better than fresh striper out of the Saco River. But yeah. So anywho, alrighty. I said I covered everything, and I'm yakking on still. All right, y'all. Much love, much light.